Hello. Hi, nice to be here. So I'm actually going to dive straight in, and I'm going to give people at home a few seconds to grab a pen and paper. And people here, I think some of you have already got pens and papers. So I'm going to start with a quick exercise. I'd like you to divide your page into 4 segments like that. And then I'm going to need you to be super quick, because you've only got 10 seconds to finish each exercise, okay? Okay, so in the first quadrant, I would like you to draw a picture of a nurse in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great, and then I'd like you to spend 3 seconds to give your nurse a name in 3, 2, 1. First thing that comes on your mind. Okay, next I'd like you to draw me a firefighter in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'd like you to give that firefighter a name in 3, 2, 1. Gets a bit more difficult here. I would like you to draw me a rocket scientist in 10 seconds, please. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And please give your rocket scientist a name in 3, 2, 1. And finally, I would like you to draw me an engineer in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And give your engineer a name in 3, 2, 1. Pencils down, no cheating. Okay, we'll visit this in a bit, but first I'd like you to look at this picture and tell me how many triangles can you see. Just shout some numbers at me. How many? 4. Anything else? 12, okay. When I look at this picture, I see 2, but the answer is 0. There are no triangles in this picture. Our brains are amazing. They're constantly filling in the gaps for us, but they do this so quickly that we often miss our unconscious biases. So I'd like to take you back to this slide and introduce you to some of my personal friends. This is my friend John Cook, and he is a nurse. My friend Melissa Pinder, and she is a badass firefighter. This is my friend Bianca Kefalo, and she's a rocket scientist, and she's giving a talk later today. And hello, lovely to meet you. I am Shrouk El-Attar, and I am an engineer. I was named BBC 100 Most Influential Women in the World, United Nations Young Women of the Year, and last year I was in the top 6 Young Women Engineers in this country. I go by she or they pronouns. I usually ask people to choose, but she is an engineer. It's such a powerful statement, and it shouldn't be, but we live in a world where it is. So actually, if you're talking about me in engineering terms, I would love for you to use she pronouns. Okay, so this is my talk. Young people in tech, a guide on how to kick ass. But there's something very strange going on in my presentation, so please be mindful, and then I'll ask you again if you've noticed anything strange, okay? I am from Egypt. I was born and raised in Egypt, and one of my earliest memories was realizing that the people on my TV are not actually tiny little people living inside it. And for me, that was just amazing. What is that? Magic? I didn't know it was called engineering back then, but I got obsessed with electronics. I used to take everything apart, including my mum's mobile phone, which didn't make her very happy. My mum looks nothing like that, by the way. So I studied really hard, and I skipped 2 years. I was supposed to be one of the youngest to ever qualify for an engineering degree at just 15. Anything strange? Have you noticed anything strange? You can shout stuff at me. No? No, nothing strange. That's okay. I didn't notice I was doing anything strange for years, actually. But everybody I used looks nothing like me. I love using cartoons in my presentations, but everybody I chose is white. So let me take you to the cartoon that I chose last, this one. So I'd Google geek, and then pictures of male geeks would pop up. I'd Google geek, cartoon, girl, and then, okay, lots of women still look nothing like me. Brown people, brown seems to mean hair color or eye color. Geek, cartoon, girl, bug, okay, seems to be getting somewhere. Still a lot of irrelevant pictures, but our default is white, our default is male, our default is able-bodied, our default is heterosexual. So I thought I'd keep it in and make it a bit of a conversation topic. In 2007, I arrived to the UK. Can you guess which person I am? No? Okay, I'll give you 2 seconds to guess. 1, 2. Ta-da! So I actually used to straighten my hair all the time, but conversation for another day. But I did my A-levels at Cathays High School in Cardiff in physics, Arabic, maths, computing, Welsh. And then I was finally able to apply to university to study this magic, right? So I applied to universities, and then I found out that I couldn't access university, not because I was incapable, but because I was an asylum seeker. This honestly shattered me. So I tried to find alternatives. And in 2011, I came across the term STEM ambassador. I found out that I can still teach kids about engineering without learning about engineering myself. So I taught kids how to do cool things like transform trash into electric generators. In 2012, there was an immigration dawn raid on my family home. I wasn't asleep at home that night. I was asleep at a friend's house, and my family were deported. I ended up being left behind, and I was the only person left behind, so I was here alone. And this is when I found out that actually choosing to be a STEM ambassador a year earlier wasn't just something that was helping other people, it was something that was helping me. I found inspiration in teaching kids about STEM. I found strength in teaching students about engineering. And then in 2013, something amazing happened. I was given indefinite leave to stay in this country. That meant I could finally access university. So I studied electronic engineering at Cardiff University, and at uni, I continued my STEM work. I was the Vice President for Engineers Without Borders, the Diversity Officer for the Electrical and Electronic Engineering Society, just to name a few. And I've been a STEM ambassador for 9 years now. It makes me feel a bit old. And then I did lots of engineering placements. My first one was working with surgeons operating on the eye. I developed a system that helps with eye surgery. I then did my own industry at Intel, working in the Internet of Things, and I connected all sorts of things to the internet, from plants all the way to wine. And I combined that with AI and machine vision to make smarter tech. I also did some really cool things as an engineer, like I built a car and raced it. I then went to Fujitsu in Japan, working on optical network communications, and I was actually offered a permanent role there, but instead I chose to come back to the UK and do my master's in electron spin resonance. Has anybody heard of electron spin resonance before, ESR? Hands up if you have. Yay, some people have, okay. MRI, most people have heard of MRI, right? Okay, it's a bit similar. It's a lot closer to NMR than MRI, but most people are familiar with MRI, so I'll choose that. So MRI kind of vibrates water molecules to understand what organic material we're looking at. With ESR, you're exciting the electrons themselves. So you're exploiting, actually, electron quantum spin to find out the same thing, to find out what organic material you're looking at. This is what an ESR machine looks like. As you can see, it's huge. How much do you think it costs? Shout some numbers at me. $1 million. $1 million. Anything else? 15,000 or 50? 15. Okay, so they can cost from £100,000 all the way to millions plus. So for my master's, my aim was to create something that does the same thing, but cheaper, more portable, and modular. And I've been successful. I created an ESR signal, but instead of filling a whole room, it was in 1 meter square. And instead of costing hundreds of thousands of pounds, it cost less than £300 to make. Imagine a world where one day you're able to detect things like cancer from something as small as your mobile phone. I feel honored that my research has gone into creating that future. I then graduated, finished my master's, and I joined Venisure as a graduate, working in industrial robotics as an electronic engineer. And some of the robots that I worked on can measure things so small, up to a single nanometer, which is 60,000 times smaller than the width of a human hair. Over there, I met with the company's CEO to discuss things like the gender pay gap. And I've also co-founded Venisure's first ever diversity and inclusion network. And right now, I'm so excited to say that I work for LV as an electronic engineer in the $50 billion femtech industry. Ta-da! It took more than 160 years to realize that people who breastfeed do not want to be treated like dairy cows. So I make electronics for silent, wearable, and smart breast pumps. It has the potential of helping more than 700,000 breastfeeding people in the UK each year alone. I love that I get to transform people's lives for a living. Being an engineer is my superpower. But I wasn't always given access to engineering. I wasn't always able to study engineering. So I joined Student Action for Refugees, and we started a campaign called Equal Access to Higher Education for Asylum Seekers. I went and spoke to Parliament. I spoke to vice chancellors. I encouraged students to sign petitions and petition and lobby their government, petition and lobby their universities. And right now, I'm so excited to say that this campaign has been successful at more than 75 universities to date. There are, I think, about 108 universities in this country. I know that together with your help, we can make the whole country a nation of equal access so that no asylum seeker is denied access to engineering ever again. And y'all, I'm an engineer by day. I'm also a belly dancer by night. Yes, I've made a machine that can detect things like cancer. I've also belly danced around the world, countries as far as India, countries as far as Japan. When I belly dance, I mix two of the biggest parts of my identity, being queer, the art of drag, with being Egyptian, the art of belly dance. And I perform as dancing queer. But growing up, I was always told I have to choose art or engineering. And to these people, y'all, I say, embrace the power of and. You can't just be both. You can be both and kick ass at both. But before I finish this, I would like to share with you something that I found really hard to share, and I'm only just opening up about it quite recently. The truth is, I almost quit engineering completely. I almost quit the tech industry completely. I worked for somebody who made me feel like I was an awful engineer, like whatever I did, I would never be a good enough engineer. And I don't think that quitting is for losers. I think knowing when to quit is a really good skill, but that time was not it, not for me. And had I quit back then, I wouldn't be able to stand here in front of you today and talk to you about all the cool stuff I just talked to you about now. But from that experience, I took 3 things. And this is what works for me. It's not necessarily what works for everybody. But y'all, I take up space and make space. I'm loud. I make sure my voice is heard. And I will not apologize for my hair. I will not apologize for being a refugee. I will be my authentic, true self. Be unapologetically you. Thank you for coming to my talk. These are all the social media handles you can stalk me on. Please do, if you want to follow my engineering or my belly dance. And I recommend the BBC's documentary, No More Boys and Girls, and also the book, Invisible Women. Thank you for having me. I'm Shrouk El-Attar.